Hi, I'm Mel from XR Indonesia. Last year was tough. Indonesia held the G20 presidency for the first time ever, and coming into the year, we had such high expectations and excitement that this would provide an excellent opportunity to hold actions while having the country on international spotlight. Turns out, Indonesia is a little bit different from what I understand other G20 countries who have hosted the presidency before, in which citizens didn't really know what the G20 was prior to 2022. And all of the government bodies were really heavily involved in promoting G20 related things. Even banners, posters, and any events really related to the state would have a G20 logo slapped in the corner. So the image was so strong that the G20 is a positive thing for Indonesia, especially for our economy, which had been difficult for everyone ever since the pandemic hit. So the narrative had been, this is going to save us all. And that made it particularly difficult for civil society to bring any counter narratives, as a vast number of Indonesians would actively shut down any dissenting opinion, especially in Bali, where the summit was held, whose economy was hit particularly bad by the pandemic. We wanted to do a bunch of protests, including holding a people's summit in which the civil society, comprising of general citizen, NGOs, CSOs, and movement to come together and discuss solutions and come up with our own version of manifesto, which was to be launched during this G20 summit. But unfortunately, even leading to it, we had so many intimidation, surveillance, and other discouraging attempts by the authorities that ended up making the summit not possible to hold. Other events held by civil society in Bali were met with oppression and forced closure, even student-led art exhibition, and a biking tour from Jakarta to Bali, or even a discussion held in a private villa by the Legal Aid NGO of Indonesia were ransacked by what seemed to be a combination of police, intelligence, and gangsters. Meanwhile, Indonesia's PR was so great due to its excellent event organizing skills. They actually did a lot of side events throughout the year, which looked like it was inclusive from the posters, but are really hard to get into. Even finding out the time and location prior to the date was extremely hard for regular citizens from the outside. So that's one learning, that we really should work together with people from NGOs who actually did get invited inside, as we need to get access to those formal events from friends and comrades that have access and invites, and having them actually allow you to come and join, at least to flash some signs or banners within the side events to highlight the things that are not being discussed in those events. Things like indigenous rights, systemic injustice, debt cancellation even, or just calling out the false solutions. We were so focused on being on the outside, which got repressed instead, and missed a lot of opportunities to raise awareness. And another thing was energy transition was mentioned as one of the three pillars of the presidency, which is great, right? And potentially did a good result, like the Just Energy Transition Plan, where Indonesia supposedly is getting $20 billion to transition away from coal. But of course, the devil is always in the details. And lots of false solutions were actually being discussed in the summit. I recall one side event on energy transition was hosted by the biggest state-owned coal mine company in Indonesia, with the title of the event being The Role of the Coal Industry in Energy Transition, where green coal is openly promoted as a real thing. And that's an excellent opportunity for us to protest from the inside, but we also missed that chance. And there were times when some XR groups and other civil society groups raised concerns about the G20, or blatantly saying, screw G20 or G20 kills. And then there was a lot of people online started attacking us and saying that we don't know what we're talking about, that the government's already doing so well with the energy transition on the table and so on. So I think another learning is to really call out the facts and lies within the details instead of solely focusing on the big slogan. But of course, this depends on the situation as well as the awareness level of the country towards G20 existency itself. But yeah, would be good to have some sort of published database on fact-checking all the claims and pledges made on a website or something so people can just access it and read it themselves. It really would be ideal if we were able to come up with a list of all the injustice that is happening in the country related to investments or companies originating from the G20 countries and host coordinated actions across origin countries during the G20. But we didn't have enough time or resources to compile such lists or even organize a coordinated action, especially because the G20 was happening in the midst of COP27. So the spotlight within the climate movement were pretty much there instead. So yeah, coordinated actions would definitely be a good one to do. Expectations from other countries, we still believe it's a good idea to hold a people's summit to counter the G20 summit, to come up with a manifesto that is rooted in participatory democracy, elevating grassroots solutions that already exist, and highlighting the injustice that are committed at a systemic level, combining cross-solidarity across country. Actions must be taken, but in the case that the outside is too dangerous or heavily guarded by police or military, we really need to try to go inside more. Play prettily, but visible, without losing the substance. But yeah, of course, any chance we can take to do actions on the outside should definitely still take it. But try not to clash so head to head with the narrative created by the government because of all the pushback from the people. Again, depending on the situation. But instead, we can also steer it so that it's still geared towards your favor without that backlash. And although it's important to be reactive and call out different slogans and whatnot, but we really should be carving a path towards a long-term goal and dreams, reimagining what the society should like, and by really compiling all the different solutions that the civil society have already been building for decades, and not just in the climate movement, but across all the movements. So, good luck. Hope this year is a better year for everyone.